So what the heck is a fertility rate? Like, I know, I'm not making up some dirty joke, but like, what is a fertility rate? So fertility rate is in a country, are you producing enough children to offset the deaths? That's it. That's the fertility rate. So in a society that's going to stay level, you need 2.1 births per woman. I'm not going to do any of the I'm not going to do the people who have children routine. I'm just going to call them women. Okay. So for women, they need to produce, I don't know, nobody produces zero point 0.1 kid, but you understand it's an average. So you have to stay ahead of 2 in order to replace your population. If you go below 2.1 with no immigration, you end up with eventually nobody in your country. But it's important to understand how fast it can happen or how slow it can happen. So when you go down to 1.0, when you go down to 1% or 1.0 kids per woman, you're done. Like, because you're not duplicating your society anymore. Your population shrinks. Go talk to Japan. Japan, their population keeps shrinking constantly. They're at 1 instead of 2.1. They're at 1. Okay. So is Korea. Korea's the same. Canada is getting into a precarious spot. We're at 1.2 something. And Ontario's the worst in Canada at 1.25. And again, if you're like Korea, Taiwan, listen, the mainland China doesn't have to invade Taiwan. Just wait 50 years. There's be nobody there. That's how it works. I mean, if you're not reproducing if a couple, man and woman, don't reproduce another 2, you're going backwards. So what does it all mean? What does this extremely low fertility rate mean? The fact that people aren't having kids. So it means the requirement for immigration. You have to bring immigrants in from countries where they're having a lot of kids. And although, quite frankly, the only countries in the world right now that are having a lot of kids is Africa. Their numbers are average of about 4. Remember, 2.1 is replacement. They're running about 4. There's parts of Asia, Middle East that are running a little higher than 2, but every place else is low. Europe's ridiculous. Italy's disappearing. Spain's disappearing. France, Germany, they're all disappearing. Poland's not bad, but they're still not quite at replacement. So and even in South America, they're barely hanging in. They're not as bad as like Japan, but they're not replacing their citizens. So what you have to do, you have to address immigration. If you ever wonder where the really crazy story of, century initiatives, so there'd be 100 million people in Canada came from, or the emphasis on immigration that took off when Justin Trudeau became the prime minister, it's all around this idea that if we don't have immigration, we won't have people, we won't have growth in population, and we can't support an aging population. That's a whole other topic, that the population ages. Boomers were the biggest group of people born in that generation of boomers, people like me. We're huge numbers of people born, and it's fallen off since then. But we are old. We're old AF, and you're ever getting sick, and we need health care, and we don't work, and we stole all your equity in your houses and all that stuff. But bottom line is this. What do? You have to have immigration, or you will not be able to sustain your population. And a shrinking population, well, they're panicked in Japan right now. They didn't allow any immigrants whatsoever for the better part of 100 years. And you could come in, you could never become a citizen. Like, they have a whole bunch of Koreans, or fifth generation in Japan, that they're not allowed to be citizens. But that's changing now. There was 3.6 million immigrants to Japan last year because they know they're doomed. Like, if they don't start bringing in people to work, high-skilled people, there's not enough people. That's it. So what are we thinking about? What does it mean in Canada? So in Canada, it means Shouldn't we find a way so that young people can have kids? Like, don't get me wrong. I understand a lot of it's social. It's different. I mean, people are raised differently today. There's not the same kind of emphasis on having kids. In fact, you're discouraged from having kids till you're in your 30s. That's the reality. You know, when I was young, I mean, when you got married, you just say, well, you better have a kid now. I'm old. I'm 68. So that's all changed. So yes, some of it's societal. It's cultural. We get it. But a lot of it, a very important part of it, is economic. So if you're in your 20s today, you're wondering what in the name of God your future is going to be at all. You don't think you're ever going to be able to own a home unless your parents help you out massively financially. You're oppressed by unaffordability. You have your expenses are high. Unemployment for youth, unemployment's big. I mean, it's literally terrible to be a kid today. If you were born in, if you were age 20 in 1978, you could buy a house for next to nothing, like compared to today. You could buy a house, statistically, you could buy a house, have a car, get married, and your spouse didn't have to work. Yeah, statistically, not for everybody, but for people who are working steadily, that was a possibility. That is gonzo now. That doesn't exist anymore in the expensive regions of Canada. So ask yourself this. How important is it to restore affordability to housing for young people? How important is it to have a country where prices aren't going through the roof all the time? You don't get a renewal on your car insurance that's 9%. What the hell? I mean, how important is it? Well, it might be the most important thing for your country that you could ever imagine. Because if you don't find a way to encourage people who are born in Canada to have kids, you're going to have to return to massive immigration eventually. I'm not talking the crazy town of 1.2 million or stuff a year, but I am telling you, if you want to throttle it back to 300,000 a year, you're not going to be able to do that forever. You're going to have to keep increasing it. You're going to have more immigration to keep an economic base in this country, because we're a heavy tax country, heavy service country. We're sort of a socialist country. So you need people pouring money into the tax base, unless you want to have the crazy deficits that we have. You can't do that forever because we're not the U.S. We're not. We don't have the reserve currency. We're not a major military power at all. So we can't act like the U.S. We have to bring in people. So that's your choice. Figure out a way to find young people an opportunity to raise a family comfortably, have the economic comfort of owning a home, of being comfortable, of having savings coming in. So yeah, I can have a kid now. If you don't do that, you must commit to a level of immigration, because people still want to come here. That's just the truth. But you have to commit to it, because nothing else works. You can't maintain your economy with a shrinking population. It's hopeless.